I'm Palle Kvist. This is a summary of my presentation. Welcome. But first a little bit about myself. I have been employed at this university teaching PBL in 35 years at all 3 faculties. I have also been a partner in developing the Master in Problem-Based Learning in Engineering and Science and Master Education, which I can warmly recommend for you. And now I teach project management for study groups. One of my research areas are the history of the problem. And the question raised here is, for instance, what should be understood by a problem? How to define a problem? But why is it important? Well, it's important because it's an important implication for the possibility for the student to identify and formulate the problem, and the problem is the starting point of the learning process in the Aalborg model. For whom then? For whom is it important? Well, it is important for the students because they are responsible for their own learning and must know the starting point. And it's important for the facilitators because without knowing what a problem is, they cannot make a review of the starting point which the student has chosen. The status is that there is a lack of an accepted definition. A study from 2004 found 20 different definitions of what should be understood by a problem. All of them practiced at Aalborg University during the years of the existence of the university. On the left, you see the more unspecific or soft definitions, and to the right you see the specific and more hard definitions. So it's a little bit confusing. And if we have a look at the suggestion for the standards for certification, we will also find the confusion there. In the introduction is said a problem often growing out of a question or wondering. So it can be something related to a question or wondering. But in the introduction on page 4, 2 pages later, it is said under the term of definition, key terms, a problem grows out of students wondering within different disciplines and professional environments. So, according to the standards, it can be a question or it can be a wondering. And if you try to Google it, the confusion will not disappear. You can see some of the results from Google. But let us go back to the standards for certification, to the definition of the key term, a problem. It said that a problem grows out of students wondering within different disciplines and professional environments. So we have to look at the definition of wondering. How should we define wondering? A wondering can be defined as a feeling or experience that a phenomenon which is observed is different from what has been expected. And the Oxford Dictionary has an equal definition. It says that it is the emotion excited by the perception of something novel and unexpected or inexplicable, astonishment mingled with perplexity or bewildered curiosity. So, a wondering can be said to be a symptom of a problem, not a problem. In the paper, I have gone through the definitions found and compared them to the definition of a wondering, and it's mainly the definitions to the right that creates a feeling of wondering. It could also be questioned if it is a good idea to connect a feeling or experience related to single students to the definition of a problem. It seems not to be so. So here comes instead my suggestion for a definition of a problem. I would like to define it as a documented or argued anomaly, paradox, contrast, or contradiction. And then, of course, we have to define what should be understood by something which is documented, what is understood by something which is argued, what should be understood by an anomaly, a paradox, a contrast, or a contradiction. The definitions are seen on the next slides. Please read the slides. So the first thing to do in a project is to document or argue for the problem. To document or argue the anomaly, the paradox, the contrast, or the contradiction. If the anomaly, the paradox, the contrast, or the contradiction cannot be documented or argued for, then there is no problem. For certification and standardization, it's also a good idea to add the purpose. What is the purpose with the problem solving? Is it understanding or comprehension, answering the question of why? Is it change, answering the how question? Or is it understanding and change, answering the question of why and the how? So the Aalborg model goes not as you see here on this slide. It does not start with a problem analysis and then goes to problem solving. It starts, as we see on the next slide, with the documentation of the problem or a problem argued, and it is then solved with the help of theories, and it is documented with the empirical evidence, and then finally a report is written. That was the end. Thank you.